My name is Nasir Kenneth Ferebee, and this is my LA year one.
Can you say it more appealing for those with light skin? I'm joking.
um,
I'm joking.
this is my name is Nasir Kenneth. My name is Nasir Kenneth Ferebee, and this is my LA year one.
Shamar Moore would be proud.
Wanna do one more?
Nah, you're good. You're
Oh,
good.
good. Okay, okay.
Appreciate that.
All right.
So, tell me about your first year in LA.
My first year in Los Angeles was quite an adventure. It was a lot of ups and a lot of downs, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I moved here February 1st, 2014. I had no car, no job, no apartment, and only two friends. And so I found my church on February 2nd. I got my car on February 4th, and then I moved into my apartment on February 8th. And the way that I set up my journey here was I had a college buddy who I just said, hey, can I have 30 days on your air mattress? And the air mattress actually had a hole in it. So by the time 1 a.m. came, I was on the floor. And so he was gracious enough to give me his home for 30 days and let me crash with him. And I was out by the eighth day. And he was super impressed by that. And so I had two amazing friends, but essentially I had to really learn how to navigate on my own because they were busy with their lives and they were extremely supportive, but I had to figure it out. Like I had to really hit the ground running, which is what I did, which is why I was able to establish a lot for myself within the first month of being here. But I was in for quite an adventure for sure.
When you moved to your apartment, did you take the air mattress with you?
When I moved to my apartment, I did not take the air mattress with me. I got a new air mattress from the was it the it was either a Kmart or a Walmart on Crenshaw. It's not there anymore. I got a new air mattress and I slept on that for a couple of months until my furniture from New York came.
Those air mattress days when like you have a hole in it, and by a certain time, it's going to be depleted. I remember I was dragging my feet when I was in the Navy, living in Virginia. I was dragging my feet on getting a real bed, so I got an air mattress, and eventually got a hole in it. And I think I dealt with that longer than you dealt with your situation. I dealt with mine for
Mhm.
a good 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, yeah. I dealt with my air mattress. No, it was like a good three. It was like a good maybe 2 3 months maybe.
Got you.
And so I had a really serendipitous moment a couple years ago when I got my dream bed. Well, it's it's like my silver medal dream bed, I should say. Like the gold dream bed is a Tempur-Pedic California King bed, but I got a full size Tempur-Pedic bed a couple of maybe like 3 years ago, and that was a huge moment that I was able to pay for that bed in cash because, yeah, I know what it's like to have to buy a $150 bed and just make it work. It's not great for your back.
No, it is not, especially in those early times in LA when you are putting your back into overdrive.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so that was the beginning of my story. I got here and realized that I was really kind of in it alone by myself and I got terrified quite frankly.
Really? Why
Yeah.
is that?
To sum it up in hindsight, I quite frankly didn't really believe that I could execute what God had called me to execute in Los Angeles. I just didn't believe it. Everything that I've experienced over these past 10 years, some of them have been so astronomical that I was like, oh wow, I didn't really see that happening. That's been amazing. There's also some things that I did expect that haven't happened, which is also quite interesting too, right? And so I'd fallen in love 2 months before I moved to LA.
Mhm.
I'd met a guy on my dad's birthday, actually, in the club in New York City. And we were literally on the dance floor. We met, and I said, "Listen, I'm moving to LA in 2 months. I don't got time for this." And he said, "Well, I want to move to LA too." And I said, okay, well, maybe we can move there together. And I was like half joking at that point. Um, I was fully joking at that point. Let me say that. Um,
Falling in love on the dance floor is a dangerous thing.
exactly, exactly. So we met, like I said, in first week of December. Um, and I was scheduled to move to LA February 1st, 2014. And I left. I went to LA. We spent every day together from that moment on, from December through February. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna move you out to LA with me. He didn't quite believe it, but I was really it was my first boyfriend like ever. Um, and so I thought that, oh, we're gonna move to LA and we're gonna build this empire and it's gonna be amazing, it's gonna be great. And I was like, we're gonna live life together, it's gonna be amazing. And my family was excited. My grandmother, my aunt was excited. My dad was excited. They were like, "We're glad you have somebody out there with you," and it quickly blew up in my face. And I realized that you should not move in with people that you don't know, especially not across the country. That you have to really take your time to get to know someone. That love is only half the battle, and you need trust and honesty and commitment and integrity and loyalty. I have a funny story
Okay.
of when I realized I was literally like living with a whole stranger that I didn't know. Um, so he he was on Instagram and there were tickets to a concert. There was a concert that day for an artist. And he said, he said, I just DM'd the artist to see if I can get tickets for his concert. And I said, why would you? Then this was like a world famous artist. And I said, why would you DM him to get tickets to his concert? And he said, oh, because I used to sing with him. And I said, what do you mean you used to, what do you mean you used to sing with him? And he was like, well, I was in his choir. And I said, you were in a choir? And he goes, yeah, I was in a choir. And I was like, what did you do in a choir? He was like, I would sing. I said, you can sing? And he was like, yeah, I can sing. And I was like, you used to sing with him? And he said, yeah. And he went to the bathroom and I had the biggest panic attack because I said, I don't know this man. I'm living with somebody. I said, this nigga can sing and I don't even know. I said, what? I said, what have I got? I kept my first 10 months here with everything. I kept saying, what have I gotten myself into? The relationship became a disaster. I fell into a huge depression. Um, my faith was just shaky and rocky. Um, but the crazy part was that like I was working really consistently and doing great work. I ended up at like Sunset Gower Studios. Literally, I was working on a show in post production there. I wasn't working on Scandal or How to Get Away with Murder, but I was working in proximity to them. So I would see Viola Davis walk past, and I would see Kerry Washington walk past, and I would see Tony Golden walk past, and they were all very kind and gracious to speak and etc. And so it was such a weird contrast of like literally being so close to what I came out here to get, like to work to execute these dreams and working at a big studio, but being so miserable because I didn't realize until a therapist told me that like moving is the second highest cause of stress after a death in the family.
Mm.
I had no idea of that. So I moved across the country with a man that I barely knew in a city with and where I didn't know anyone. And I had to really restart my life from the ground up. And I didn't understand the magnitude of that and how that wears on you mentally and emotionally.
What we don't know at times, right? When we
Mhm,
decide just to hop in the deep end.
mhm,
I talk about hopping in the deep end quite often with people, and it seems like a lot of people do that when they move out to LA. But looking back, are you thankful for what you did? For what you did? Hopping face first into things that take people years to decide and just doing it all at one time,
mhm.
moving across the country, jumping into your career, moving by yourself. But I didn't ask you, did you when you got your apartment, you were by your it was your own apartment, no roommates?
When I first got here, February 1st, 2014, I moved into my own studio apartment.
Okay.
Now, I had sense though. I was in love, but I was in love and gullible, but I was never stupid. So I made sure I got an apartment that I could afford on my own.
Right, and I imagine only your name was on the lease?
Absolutely.
Smart,
I knew
smart.
that.
Yes,
I
yeah.
was like, let me not just go all the way. I learned that like next time I'll make sure I have a therapist set up when if I move somewhere drastic. I'll make sure that I'll take the appropriate measures to set myself up for the best level of success possible, right? I really just didn't know. I thought because God had called me to it that it was going to be easy. And I thought because moving to LA and pursuing a career in film was a lifelong dream that I was going to be fine. And then I quickly learned that like that's not really how it goes. I always say like I had this vision that like I was gonna get off the plane and Oprah Winfrey and Ava DuVernay were gonna be there waiting for me, and they were gonna be like, "Our beloved baby, come here. We've been waiting for you. We'll greenlight all of your ideas right away." And
Mm.
so when I got off the plane, I was like, I like low key was like, I was like, where, where Oprah? I thought like I was like, where Oprah ain't here. I was like, where Ava? Where you at, girl? Like Charles King, where you? Oh, I gotta like. Oh, the work has only just begun. Um, I just had, and I attribute that to right. God knows His children, right? Like God knows His kids. Um, I remember when I was with my second boyfriend, I call him the angel because that's what he was. But when I was with my second boyfriend, and he had been in LA for a long time, and he was a veteran in the industry, and he really helped to guide me and show me a lot of really amazing things in life and in my career in particular. And he said to me, if you had known how hard it was going to be, would you have come here? And I said, hell no. Absolutely not. God knows his children. So God knew that he kind of had to get me here to be kind of gullible. And it was everything. It was the relationship, it was the architecture of the buildings, it was the layout of Los Angeles, it was the way people dressed, it was the green juice, it was the hiking. It was like what? It was like cuz everything in LA is completely different from everything where we grew up, where I'm from. I'm born and raised in Philly, and I lived in New York for 5 years before moving here. So the architecture is different. The weather is different. The people dress different. The people operate differently. The things, let me be clear, the transplants in Los Angeles operate differently. LA natives are actually really amazing and great to date. But the
Mm,
transplants in LA, some of the transplants in LA,
there we go.
some of the transplants in Los Angeles, the way integrity and honor is looked at is such a weird experience. Like out here, it's perfectly okay not to honor your commitment. It's perfectly okay not to keep your word. It's perfectly okay to screw somebody out of a deal and just say, "Oh, that's just a business." Like, and they don't even think twice about it.
How did you deal with change? I wouldn't say changing, but
Mm-hmm. You know, it's changing.
yeah,
Yeah.
not really changing who you are, right? Because we can never change who we are. We can only evolve
Mm-hmm.
into a better version. Like, so how did you evolve yourself to be able to deal with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like evolving to a point where I didn't take things personally of how some of the snakes and sharks can move in this industry. It was it's still a work in progress. A good attorney helps.
Yes,
A good attorney is really essential out here.
we actually know a great attorney.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we know a few great attorneys, fortunately. But yeah, one in particular has helped tremendously for sure. But having a great attorney is essential. Not taking things personally, getting out of my emotions and not operating from a place of emotion, operating from a place of business and discernment. Um, and recognizing that a lot of people are just really out, they're focused on trying to do what's best for them. Um, But I had already started that in New York because my career in New York was very corporate. It was very like corporate TV production. So I came up in a major cable network system. So I had already kind of learned some of the different some of the different quirks and idiosyncrasies and bad habits and lacking integrity that people operated with. But LA was a whole different ball game. LA was like I'd gotten like a taste of it in New York, and then in LA was like I was like, oh, so you just going like mess me out this deal
With a smile on your
with a
face.
smile on your face and tell me I should be grateful to be here. And I was like, "Ooh, okay." And I had to learn to navigate. Each project I do, I learn how to negotiate my contract better. Each project I do, I learn how to be an advocate for myself better. So it just and every single time there's a blind spot. Every time I'm like, "Ooh, didn't negotiate that. Oh, wait, didn't talk to my lawyer about that. Oh, wait, didn't do that." And it's like, okay, you just keep learning and you keep growing, you keep evolving. And so it's still a process, and I think it's going to be a never-ending process.
Putting ego to the side and your feelings to the side to work with people that have fucked you over before.
Mhm.
Because something I recently learned that I had to do
Mhm.
was, or recently learned, which is s- the people who fucked you over. uh, there's a chance down the line you will work with them again.
Mhm.
If you still hold resentment towards them,
Mhm.
what you are doing, what you may not be aware of, is just continuing to let them fuck you over.
Mhm.
They actually did you a favor
Mhm.
because they showed you who they were,
Yeah.
and they actually showed you where they valued you at.
Mhm.
And you know your value better than they do.
Mhm.
So they could have fucked you over down the line. Be grateful they did it there. And so in a way, when as you said earlier,
Mhm.
whereas it's like, oh, I'm messing you over, but I'm doing you a favor.
Mhm.
They are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they absolutely are, right? And it's like I've had to learn to navigate it in a very specific way. Um, I can work with anyone now. I mean, it just has to be. I always keep my choice of whether I want to work with someone. And I always honor my choice of whether or not I want to deal with it. Can I deal with it? Yeah. Do I want to? Maybe not. It has to really be worth it. It has to. Excuse me. Every deal point has to make sense, and I don't just
Right.
mean that like business wise. I mean that like spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Um, I'm smiling because I'm thinking of something right now, in particular where it's like it may not be the best environment, but there's no solid deal breaker that, oh, I'm just not gonna be in this environment or be in this space or work at this corporation or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And so, um, but I have learned to be particular and meticulous. But it's a balancing act for sure. It's a balancing act of how to navigate it and what your choices are. But yeah, some of the people where it wasn't the best experience, I've had to circle back and be like, and we can greet each other and smile and act like it never happened and keep it pushing. But I know what the truth is, and I know how it was handled, and it is what it is, you know.
Right. So in social gatherings
Hmm.
with people who happen to be in the industry,
Hmm.
and they're either talking shop like industry wise, and it's not really, it's more so what they plan on working on,
Hmm.
not celebrating a piece of art,
Hmm.
or and when it's and people are talking about the business or number side of things, but you are not but you're not negotiating a deal. People are just talking. Like,
Hmm.
how do you handle those kind of conversations?
Hmm. When it comes to being at an industry event and business conversations come up, it really depends on my own personal bandwidth, like that day, that week, etc. Like,
Well, I mean, it's not
yeah.
actually not an industry event,
Hmm.
just birthday party
Oh, okay. Okay.
or a social gathering at a place where industry people they're your friends that just so happen to work in the industry.
Hmm. Yeah. So when a scenario of a conversation that's very industry based comes up at a non-industry environment, I typically try to pivot the conversation.
Mm,
Like I'll throw a monkey wrench in there where I'll be like, "How's your mom doing?"
right.
You know what I mean? Or how's your grandmother doing? Or, how's your child adjusting to the new school? Or, whatever the case may be. Because what's really helped me is being able to know like the difference between an industry acquaintance, an ally, and a real friend. My sister can tell you that when when somebody calls someone my friend, I'm really good at being like, oh no, that's an acquaintance of mine. That's an industry ally of mine. That's not my friend, because they're not. You know what I mean? My real friend, and when I'm with my real friends, they know what not to bring up, and when I'm with my real friends, my whole demeanor is even different because I'm not in that space to put on a show. You know what I mean? Like when I walk into an industry event, I know that again, my loved ones can tell you. I usually sit in the car and I go, okay, it's showtime. It's time to put on a show. Like it's time to get in here. Let's work this room. Let's network. Let's get this money, etc. But when I'm with my real people, my real family, my real friends, it's such a the industry is such a non-factor. Um,
Do you find that exhausting at times?
Absolutely, yes. It absolutely is exhausting at times, for
Right, because to
sure.
be I would imagine so because having to switch up.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it absolutely is exhausting sometimes to either having to either switch up to be on point. Yeah, it's exhausting. I think people don't want to talk about that because it sounds cooler to be like, "Oh, I love going to every party." I don't necessarily like going to every party
Then why put on?
because it's a part of the job. It's a part of the job, whether you like it or not. I've seen, not you, but whether we like it
Mhm.
or not, I should say, excuse me, whether we like it or not, networking, the politics of things, getting your face, your name, your brand out there, getting your work out there, it's an imperative part of the job. And depending on where you are in your career, sometimes it's 80% of the job and sometimes it's only 20% of the job, right? Like, and so being in certain spaces, being in certain organizations, it's it's an important part to elevate your profile and to elevate your brand. Um, and it can result in more money. It can result in more opportunity if you're doing it the right way. If you're out there, you should be networking with people where y'all can that are like minded business wise, and really y'all can really help each other build, grow, and evolve.
Well, my concern for people, when the reason why I ask, like, is that exhausting, is one's mental health.
Hmm.
I wanna go back a bit and ask you, how were you handling your mental health in your first year?
Well, I really, to be honest, had no choice but to work on my mental health in my first year because it was really getting to a really scary danger zone for myself and for my family. And it got to the point where I was so just not okay that they were saying, why don't you just come back home? Just come back to the East Coast because we're really concerned about you. It just doesn't seem like you're handling everything well. But I knew that I knew that I could do that, and I thank God that I have the kind of family that I had. I thank God that I have the kind of family that I have. That was always an option. But in my spirit, I knew that I, I kind of knew I was going to get past it. I kind of knew I was going to make it to the other side of of the heaviness of the just all of the different trials that I was experiencing. Um, whether it be adjusting to a new city or heartbreak or panic attacks or suicide ideations. I knew that I was going to work through it, but I didn't know that I was going to work through it. And it was really touch and go for a moment. Um and it was really my faith in God, it was my church, and it was therapy that really got me together. And I was really on shaky ground from about February to August. August is when I kind of made up my mind to be like, okay, like I have to really do the work to get better mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And I just stayed in church. It was a point where I was in church 4 days a week.
Mhm.
True story. I can give you my schedule. Tuesday night, prayer hour and men's ministry. Wednesday night was Wednesday night worship. Saturday was I volunteered on the camera team and I did camera practice. And Sundays I would shoot a church service. I would operate the camera on in the church service, and then I would attend a church service. And then I was in therapy. It was like every Wednesday morning, and just slowly but surely, I just got stronger and better. And my mental health really turned around because I really showed up for myself and I did the work. I didn't think about, like, when you move to LA, you have to figure out your car, your job, your church, your barber, your doctor, your dentist, your supermarket, your you know, you have to rebuild your life from the ground up. That is a huge undertaking. I had no idea of how much of an undertaking it was to like rebuild your life from the ground up all over again. Um, I remember being here my first week and my GPS on my phone wouldn't work for some reason. And I could not figure out how to get from Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall to King and Western. And if anyone, if you know LA and you know what that is, you know that's literally like 1 mile apart. But because my apartment was in the King and Western area, and which was a 7 minute drive from Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. But I had no idea. I had no idea where I was or where I was going because it was a foreign city to me. You know what I mean? Like, and LA is very different from New York, where New York, if you're in Manhattan, Manhattan is a grid, and so you can kind of map out the blocks that way. LA ain't no grid. LA
Yeah.
is like it's sparse, everything is spread out, and so you can't even really walk places like that and figure things out unless you live in like Hollywood or like North NoHo Arts District, depending on where you are, right? But I wasn't in like Leimert Park proper, so I couldn't be like, oh, it's this and that. Like I needed my GPS, and that thing broke, and I was like, and I kept saying, what am I doing? What did I get myself into? Why am I doing this? This is so crazy. Um, but a big turning point was like when I got my furniture and I was able to kind of start to create a home for myself, like a space that was really a homey environment. And then I was at church and a wonderful angel named Miss Peggy Buck. Shout out to her. We were praying together and she said, "You need to go to men's ministry here. There are brothers there for you." And sure enough, there were brothers there for me. And I met two amazing brothers, Chris and Amin. And I met my godfather, Miles. And that was my first core crew in Los Angeles. That was my first set of real friends, people I loved and they loved me and that I could trust. And it was the start of things turning around and really building a community and a life for myself. I needed to learn, and I needed to learn really, really quickly how to navigate all these worlds, the corporate world, the independent film world, the black queer world, like all of these different communities that I go in between in Los Angeles. I had to figure out how they all operated because if you don't, it will chew you up and spit you out, and also keep it pushing. Like they will replace you so fast. I've seen it.
Yes.
I've witnessed it with friends or I should say acquaintances of mine. I've seen it. Some that y'all know. And you be like, whatever happened to so and so? Oh, I don't know. Oh, well, keep it pushing. Get the next one.
One of my favorite Kanye West quotes is in Stronger when says, "It's a lot of yous, it's just one of me."
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at LA. LA is like, there's a lot of yous.
Mm-hmm.
It's only one LA.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
so replaceable.
Yeah.
And like that's the other beauty about LA, and
Hmm.
especially that first year, where for me, that I didn't know I needed humbling.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
into
yeah.
that.
LA takes humbling. LA takes humbling for me. You know, this may sound crazy. I ain't never been to church and prayed and read the Bible so much until I moved to LA. Like for real, like people be like, "Oh, like people, what you doing? Something worship, church. What you doing?" I was reading the word. Oh, not like what you doing? I was in Bible study. I ain't never had. God ain't never humbled me so much like the way Los Angeles has. Like for real, for real. Like God, the way God has used LA to humble me and to recognize that I need to be anchored in Christ. Like I need to be steadfast in Christ and steadfast in God and my relationship with God. Like, yeah, because there is no way that I could do what I do or move through this world without him. And I don't just mean him putting breath in my lungs each day and my ability to be mobile, but I mean like to stay healthy, not just sane, but to stay healthy and happy and full in this industry and in this city and in the communities that I move through without my faith in God. Like for real, for real. LA put me in a state of just complete surrender where I was like, I remember like I would say to God, like, I need you to renew my mind and heal my heart, and help me to see myself the way that you see me. Because right now I don't see it, I don't believe it. I'm clear what you called me to do in this world and what you called me to do in this city, but I just can't believe that. Like I know what you told me, but I can't believe that I'm built. That you that I have enough tenacity and I have enough discipline or all of the attributes that you need to build a company or make films or make TV shows. I just don't believe that. And so I
Mhm.
need you to tell me who I am, Holy Spirit, and let me know what I stand for and how I'm called to move through this world and know that I stand on a solid rock of Christ in order to be the man that you've called me to be because I can't do it by myself. I learned that the hard way. Like operating and being my own God, that ain't gonna work. That was just quicksand, and that quickly fell apart from under me. Um, so I had to really lean in to my faith and really allow God to really renew my mind and to really replenish my soul and my spirit to let me know, no, this is who you are, and this is whose you are, and this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to move through the world. Um, One of my favorite Bible verses is do not cast away your confidence without which you will never be holy. And holy means like you will never be whole. You will never be full. You will never be complete. You will never be really complete with the spirit. You'll never really complete God's mission for you if you cast away your confidence. And I had to really get rock solid at my confidence in God. Like that was the big, big anchor that helped me to catapult into different ways with my mental and spiritual and emotional health, along with therapy as well.
Would you say that was your defining moment in your first year?
My defining moment of my first year was August 2014 when I really was like, okay, God, it's me and you. I'm not gonna look to God in a man. I'm not gonna look to God in myself. I'm gonna put you as number one. You are gonna be my anchor. I'm gonna move through the world the way you want me to move through the world. And slowly but surely, one by one, each angel on earth kept showing up. And next thing you know, I built this whole beautiful ecosystem of friends. And then I was collaborating with Nathan Hell Williams, and I was meeting really amazing people, and I was, I just and I was booking really great shows, everything wasn't perfect, of course, but I had built this really beautiful toolbox. And I remember one day I was with my therapist, and we both cried, because she said, I was saying something. I think I was giving her my schedule or something like that. And she said, "Wait, Nasir, let me stop you." And she said, "Look at what you just said." She said, "You have your church, you have your friends, you have therapy, you have your career, you are working out, you are meal prepping, you're hiking, you're doing yoga, you have your friends from the East Coast, you're writing, you've built this incredible world. And when you first started with me, you didn't have any of that. You felt like you only had this man, or you just only had yourself, or you were alone, or you only had these all of these. You didn't have anything, but then you have this incredible plethora of network and resources that you can lean on. And of course, I do want to clarify this. Like, I had great friends in a phenomenal family, but I was still 3,000 miles away.
Right.
So I had to rebuild it all over again. And I had great friends even when I landed here, but it's still a process to rebuild everything.
It can be quite exhausting and intimidating, as you mentioned earlier. You
Hmm.
said you're scared, and it's a thing that should scare someone a bit, but it also excites people
Hmm.
because it's also the best way to grow, right? I know you said, well, one of the better ways to grow, because I know we talked about earlier when you mentioned your therapist said that moving is like the second most stressful thing for a person to deal with. But it's
And if you're
also,
moving across the country,
yeah,
right, you're not moving from Manhattan, the Upper East Side of Manhattan, to Astoria, Queens, right? Like, if you're moving across the country from everything that you know, like, that's a huge undertaking. Like, that's a complete game changer for your mental and emotional health.
it is. But it's also, again, like from what you said, you had to grow so much
Yeah, for sure.
in that first year. Growth
Hmm.
that probably would have taken you 4 to 5 years to do, or two.
I,
All right.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't. I I'm just glad I made it through. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm just because it got really it got shaky there. It got to a point where I wouldn't even say that I didn't want to live. It just felt like happiness or contentment was just not even a real possibility for me.
Mm. And saying that, I wanted to ask you about we asked about your mental health in your first year,
Mhm.
but how do you nurture your mental health today?
Mhm. I've established a lot of really beautiful tools and resources to nurture my mental health. Um, I still have a really close relationship with Christ. I still really press into my relationship with God. Um, I'm still in therapy. I go to therapy bi-weekly. I work out a few times a week. Um, I have an amazing family and amazing friends that I speak to on a daily basis. Like, I am so blessed. I'm really, really saturated and insulated with love. Like, I have the most amazing village. From my parents to my siblings to my cousins to my aunts to my crew of best friends to my crew of super close friends to my friends that I party with to my friends that I pray with. I have a friend group for really everything. Like, I can honestly say, like, at this point in my life, I don't lack anything. I have even like what the industry went through in 2022 with the strikes, right? With the double strikes.
Another one on the horizon.
we're not gonna claim that. But with the double strikes, right? Like I still was able to find a ton of peace and contentment. I still was, excuse me, in 2023. Did I say 2022?
You just
I did, yeah. So I'll do that again. Even with everything that the industry went through in 2023 with the double strikes, and my income was cut into a third. But I still was able to find a lot of peace and contentment. Of course, there were challenges, right, with my mental and emotional health, but it, I was still so anchored in my faith and my self love and my love of myself. I recognize that whether I'm making, you know, six figures or whether I'm making a fraction of that, um, that I'm still worthy, and that I'm still that peace and contentment and bliss is still possible and accessible for me. Um, I am not my worth is not based on this industry at all anymore. At all. My worth is not based on how popular I am when I walk through a party. My worth is based on what God says about me. I know who I am and I know whose I am. I know from where my blessings flow. I know what I will do and what I won't do, to operate in this industry or this city. Um, I'm just so clear. Like, and I get more and more clear every day. And again, I am insulated. Literally, my sister is my next door neighbor. So I'm literally insulated and surrounded by love. Um, from coast to coast, from Philly to New York to LA. Yeah.
beautiful. What are ways that you're challenging yourself today? Because we think about that first year. I mean, we are
Hmm.
challenging ourselves in all kinds of ways, and there are challenges that are coming to us that we didn't even think of, right? And we had to figure out. Yeah, you had to figure it out. But today, almost 10 years later, what are ways that you're now challenging yourself?
Hmm.
Because another thing that does happen is we become very complacent. Like once we
Hmm.
start getting things
Yeah.
that we wanted to start accomplishing certain dreams, that we stop setting new goals
Hmm.
for ourselves. So, what are ways that you challenge yourself today?
Some of the ways that I'm challenging myself today, is with dating intentionally and being proactive and intentional with finding partnership and creating a family. I think that's personally that's my current big dream, is to be married and have children. So being proactive with that that's been a challenge. Professionally, I've been challenging myself to move it to the next level, to really make a mark in narrative feature films. I've done a bunch of really amazing short films, which have been really beneficial and awesome, but I want to move into the big league space. I want to play with the big dogs. So making really amazing narrative feature films. Um, my next goal is to sell some TV shows and not just work as a producer or high level producer on TV shows, but to sell shows and to be the showrunner and executive producer of those shows. Um, and yeah.
Nice. Last question.
Hmm.
If you can give advice to anyone who's currently in their first year of LA or thinking about making the trip, making the move out to LA, what would
Hmm.
that advice be?
Yeah. If you're in your first year in Los Angeles or thinking of coming to Los Angeles, I would say if you're already here, sometimes just making it through the day is an accomplishment. So give yourself grace and space to go through your process. If you are thinking of coming to Los Angeles, I beg of you to plan accordingly as best you can. When I moved here, I've heard stories of people who move here with $200, $700, $1,500. I think that's great, and to each their own. I moved here with 11,000. Half of it was gone by the first week because I got a new car and an apartment. But plan accordingly. Try to set up a nest egg for yourself, um, and try to find some different outlets to really set yourself up for the best success possible.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.